Hello and welcome back to the Real Talk Talkback podcast. We're on location here at Reynolds Lane Elementary School, and it's actually Literacy Week here in Duval County Public Schools, so we wanted to talk literacy. By the way, my name is Matt Began. I'm one of your hosts.
And I'm Vicki Pierre, and joining us today, first of all, Principal Marianne Simon at Reynolds Lane Elementary School. Thanks for being here today.
Good morning, and thank you for being here on location at Reynolds Lane.
We are excited to be here. Reading coach Michael Comatina.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And we have second grade teacher Katie LaBeouf.
Good morning. How are you?
We're doing great. And last but not least, Dr. Holly Fears, Director of Reading and Language Arts for the district. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. It is so exciting to get to talk about literacy.
Speaking of literacy, when it comes to reading, we know that studies have shown that it's very important that students begin early. Based on your experiences here as educators, what can you tell us about the students who start early versus those who maybe start a little bit behind?
So just to give a little bit of background, there are a couple of researchers, Hart and Risley, who did some research in the 90s. It was published, and that research lets us know or supported the idea that literacy starts when children are infants. It starts with oral language. It starts with children being spoken to, with them understanding how words flow together and have meaning, which then leads into children being better equipped to learn to read. And so knowing that students who come into kindergarten, they already start, many of our students, with a 30 million word gap. So there's a gap between students from professional families and students from lower socioeconomic families. And so in order to prepare our kindergarten teachers, they have to be aware of that, and they have to have some strategies in their toolbox in order to bridge that gap and to close some of those deficits, starting with children just understanding that words go together and that they have meaning, even through oral conversation. And then that leads into students being able to learn to read.
I can chime in on that. I taught kindergarten for about 5 years, so speaking on what Dr. Fears mentioned, that's definitely true. Being able to have that oral conversation is crucial in the early stages. Getting students to talk to each other about any experiences, especially related to a book, can only build on that. The lack of vocabulary is a huge gap, so getting them just to have that conversation and speak to each other is definitely crucial to building that foundation for great readers in the future.
So Principal Simon and Mr. Comatina, either one of you can jump in on this. Based on y'all's experiences, what accounts for that deficit? I mean, 30 million words is quite a big difference. Why do you see that people come in behind at that level?
I think, too, I'd like to add, just thinking about our family units and how things have changed over time. I think a lot of our families are not having that, let's all sit down for dinner and talk about our day or talk about what we're learning in school. In all families, I think we're missing that key piece. And so just kind of what everyone else was saying is just making sure we find that time at home to sit and have those conversations with our children.
As a parent, what is my responsibility when it comes to the reading and the literacy before you guys even see my child or my student?
I would say, being in a parent role, that being the example for the child, being a teacher, like if I wanted my kids to independently read, I would independently read in the beginning of the year to get them to independently read. So I think by actually being the example and showing your children that yes, reading can be fun, and most importantly, letting them choose their own books so they become lifelong readers. And don't make it a punishment. Make it so that the kids want to be able to read.
They got to find a topic that they're interested in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with our younger students, those not even students yet, but our younger children that are before school age even, having conversations with them, asking them questions about the world. I have a 2-year-old, and every day the first question is, how was your day? And her response is not very good. Mm-hmm. So, but having those conversations, what did you do? What did you like? What was your favorite part of the day? Reading to them and being able to excite them about reading, and it starts conversations where our children are drawn to certain types of books even at young ages of 2 and 3, and so fostering that.
Very nice. So here at the school level, what are some strategies that teachers and staff implement to help cultivate that love of reading among students?
Well, there's many different things that we're doing here at the school level. I think one of the biggest things that we do is make sure that every classroom has a full classroom library. One thing that we got here this year at Reynolds Lane is we got the Annenberg grant, and we spent about $10,000 on new books for the classroom libraries, and we spent a lot of that on nonfiction text. And so our goal was really to make sure we have a variety of text types for the students to choose from and a variety of genres for them to choose from. We make sure that our students know what their independent reading level is, so they know how to pick out their just right book, that not too easy, not too hard, but something that they're going to really enjoy. And then just making sure that we set aside the time every day for independent reading time, and we make sure we do that. Another important piece is making sure that they not only are reading books, that they have someone to have discussion with about those books. So engaging them in literature discussions with each other, doing some readers theater. We have our 5th graders developing their own readers theater coming up here soon. And just the teacher making sure that they are connecting with the children over their books is huge. And I would say probably the third strategy I would say is just making sure that literacy is present everywhere, no matter if you're going into the math classroom, the science classroom, but we are seeing literacy everywhere in the conversations with parents and the conversations with teachers and with children. You just see it everywhere here at Reynolds Lane.
Ms. LaBeouf, as a teacher, what are some of the biggest challenges you are seeing amongst your students when it comes to reading?
There's a lot of challenges. One of the ones, just to go on what we're talking about here, the love of reading, I think is a big challenge, because if children aren't loving it, it's hard to get them to want to do it. Even find a topic they're interested in, they have to read several others to find that. So getting that love of reading instilled in them, I think is crucial, and that's a hard challenge to overcome sometime. And just to go off of what Ms. Simon was saying too, as a teacher, I feel like it's our job to inspire and to show that passion that we love reading. We're part of that. So hopefully to get them to love that reading as well. And I know just more foundational, just those skills, making sure that they build on each other. They have to get that solid base to be able to build up to become those fluent readers and read more challenging text, especially when it comes to nonfiction. That presents a whole nother challenge. So they have to have those good skills to be able to handle the words and the information. So just getting a really solid base to build on. And they come in without that, and it's hard to get them up.
So the same question, but now instead of we're talking students, we're talking about the teachers and the school as a whole. What are some challenges we're also seeing there when it comes to reading?
So I'm going to chime in. And so we do have a new curriculum this year. So I think the challenge as a school and for teachers is really just professional development, making sure that we have that deep professional development. So each week we're spending time in common planning, really digging into the new curriculum. It is complex, the new curriculum, but it is preparing our students to be successful in the future. So from a principal's aspect, it's making sure that we give that professional development so teachers can be as successful as possible in the classrooms. I think for us, probably one of the biggest challenges is kind of what we were talking about with children coming in, not being prepared for school and already behind. So how do we continue to teach at a high expectation, but then also fill in the gaps?
And so you just spoke about people coming in behind, and I'm sure that students who are behind are aware that maybe they're not on par with their peers, and maybe that can be discouraging, but is it possible for students who are behind to be brought up?
It's absolutely possible, and I think we have a lot of systems in place to help make that happen. We do have center time every single day, an hour in our literacy classrooms, and that time is mostly used to either help remediate those students who are behind or to enrich those students who are on level or above. So in literacy, we have here at Reynolds Lane, we're lucky enough to have 2 reading interventionists that help us provide support for those students. And then in math, we also, we're talking about literacy. sorry. So we do have 2 literacy interventionists who help us provide that support. And of course, our wonderful reading coaches at all of our schools and our district specialists who come out and assist us. So absolutely possible to help.
If I could just jump in from a teacher's point of view, I would say I agree 100%. It's absolutely possible, and that's the joy of teaching. That's the joy of what we do, is seeing those children that come in low, and we see them leave where they should be. So that's what we work so hard for every day, and it absolutely is possible. It takes a lot of hard work and a great team, like Miss Simon mentioned, but it's definitely possible.
See, now it's October, and since we're also celebrating Literacy Week now, some of the other initiatives that are going on are the Superintendent's 25 Book Challenge, the 1 Million Word Challenge. Also, there's DJ's Book Club. As a school, what kind of challenges or what kind of programs have you put in place, and do you see them working?
Well, last year, the administration was new, coaches were new, so we did, we promoted, literacy throughout the school year, but at the end of the year, we had a huge reading celebration.
Okay.
And it actually turned out really cool. We were on a tight budget, so we had indoor activities, like they put puzzles together and stuff, like from covers of books.
Okay.
And then outdoor activities, like they had to balance books on their head. They had a hula hoop while reading. It was an all-day event, and the kids, they had a blast, and everything was literacy-based. Like, we did musical books. It just was an awesome, to see it all come together, like, it really was an awesome experience.
And this year, our school and several others have the HERO program. It's a kind of a behavior program where students get points for doing great things, and we've tied our reading challenge into our HERO points. And so students are reading, they're doing their reading summaries each week, and they get HERO points and then can spend those in our school store. So that's been really exciting for them for this school year.
Very nice. And this next question, I'm going to address Dr. Fears. So with the challenge, the district has some expectations and goals. So for example, 75 picture books for pre-K, kindergarten, 30 chapter books for fourth graders, 25 young adult novels for high school students. The list goes on. I don't read at that level. I'm an adult, so I read at my own pace. So are these attainable goals for students? Do you think that, students should be scared or embrace them?
I think that the goals are certainly attainable for both our primary students, our intermediate students, and our secondary students, from 2 perspectives. So as an educator, knowing that students are given independent reading time, they have time where I walk hallways of schools across the district where children are sitting waiting for class to start with a book in their hand. They're literally running into walls because they're reading on the way to lunch, because we are sparking an excitement for literacy, which is amazing. So I think certainly given the opportunities that they have for those independent reading times during the school hours, that those are attainable there. As a parent of a kindergartner, looking back on just the number of picture books that we've read from the first day of school, the 75 books in kindergarten is certainly attainable if you're reading 15 minutes a night. And 15 minutes goes by very quickly when you have sparked a love of literacy and children are wanting to read more and higher level and another book by this author or whatever the case may be.
And this year, the district has also announced a new partnership with the Jacksonville Public Library that gives all elementary students a virtual library card. What was your reaction when you heard of this partnership?
So as someone who worked on the partnership, worked with the public library to get the partnership in place, just to hear from schools the excitement that students are experiencing whenever they're able to actually go to the library and they're able to walk away with books, and teachers are able to check out more books now than they have been able to in the past, knowing that we've worked not just for the library card, but also for field trips for our kindergarten through second grade students. We're working on some projects for third through fifth grade students where the library will provide some support for research projects, because with the new curriculum, we have research projects every quarter. And so knowing that the library cards were a starting place for this partnership to really build so that throughout our community, we can foster a love of reading and a love of literacy.
And I was just going to add, our K-2 students got to go on their main library field trip already, and it's just amazing for them. They've gone to the library in the past on field trips, but in this particular one, they got to walk away with a book, and I think it really opened their eyes to, oh, this is what I can do at the library. They were so excited to be able to walk away with that book.
And hopefully they'll carry that habit with them throughout life, checking out books. And so finally, throughout this podcast, a lot of y'all, or each of y'all, have given some kind of advice that, parents can follow to cultivate that love of reading. But what can people in the community do to help you as a principal, teacher, reading coach, and someone who oversees what goes on throughout the district?
So from a principal's perspective, I could use lots of help here at the school. So my recommendation would be to reach out to your local elementary, middle, or high school. We can use readers in the classrooms just to spend some time listening to a child read or to talk to them about their book. If you have gently used books, we would love to have those so that children can take books home at night to read at home. Those are a few of my recommendations.
I agree with that. Being a teacher, we would love to have extra people come in, read to the children, or be able to listen to the children. The more adults we can have to help foster and guide them in that, the more successful they'll be. So,
And I think the more exposure of the different, male, female, all the different gender, just really will help students buy into it, to give them more ownership.
And from the district level, our community really taking on and running with a positive vision for literacy, so that literacy is not the cause of lack of whatever the case may be, but it truly is the fuel that will help our students go to college and help our students achieve their hopes and dreams. As well as knowing that, and Ms. Simon mentioned gently used books, but knowing that you may have gently used books that are not necessarily children's books, but we have processes in place, and there are resources where schools can take those gently used books and trade them in for children's books. So knowing that that's also an opportunity. Don't think just because you're reading a Western that can't be useful to the school. That's certainly something that if you would like to make those donations to your local school or where your grandchildren go to school or whatever the case may be, they can then trade those books in for children's books. But also just having conversations. What are you reading? What do you love about reading? Really just starting that literacy conversation everywhere our children go.
A lot of great information.
Yeah.
And even though we are celebrating Literacy Week, we'd like to think here at Duval County Public Schools that every week we focus on literacy. And to learn more about what we're doing here in Duval County Public Schools, you can always go back and listen to any of our podcasts. They're available on our home site at www.duvalschools.org. And you can also find our stuff on iTunes. So for Vicki Pierre, I'm Matt Began. Thanks for listening.